Our final speaker for this afternoon is Sam Moorwood, and Sam is Head of Employer Solutions at Sheffield Hallam. Sheffield Hallam, we thought it would be really good to have an HEI perspective on this, and particularly around some of the 20% issues. And Sheffield Hallam, I know, are actively involved in a number of trailblazer groups, particularly around degree apprenticeships. So hand over to Sam, who'll take through his presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I was asking myself, will there be anyone left to talk to? And will there be anything left to say? I think both of those is yes, so that's good. That's an optimistic start for me. Yeah, so my job title has the word solutions in it. Never agree to do a job or have that job title, because if someone has a problem, they automatically assume that you're the person to speak to, which is sometimes a good thing, but not always. There's the content I intend to cover during 15 minutes. So a little bit about ambitions for the university and the strategy, a bit of a case study about an employer's journey and cultural stuff, design and delivery, supporting the journey, and trying to relate all of that to 20% of the job learning as we go. So Sheffield Hallam University is ranked between 3rd and 6th largest university in England, depending on how you count, and we're currently saying 3rd largest. So we're a big university with 30,000 students. We've got a relatively new VC and a refreshed strategy, and as part of that refreshed strategy about being the leading applied university, we want to have apprenticeships at the heart of that. So we want to create a high quality and efficient portfolio, and that's actually what I do to support the university in meeting that objective. There's a lot of rationale behind why the university's got involved in this, because it doesn't have to. None of the universities, the 80 or so, looking maybe towards 100 now on the register, none of them have to do this, and it's still relatively small proportions of our overall student population that are on apprenticeship footing. But Sheffield Hallam University is an applied university, is what we do, and I'd like to talk about a case study from before apprenticeships. In my previous role, I was a senior academic and I taught planning and development, and I worked with a company called Barrett. Also with Kia as well. Barrett came to us from a recommendation given by Kia about our foundation degree and top up in construction management. So we devised a bespoke course for them. It was the first of its kind in the residential sector, and it was delivered on block release. So a non-traditional method of delivery for a university, with 20 or so learners coming to the university from around the UK, getting together 4 times a year for a week at a time. It was ever so much like an apprenticeship in that the CITB levy was being used to fund this provision. So the ingredients were remarkably similar to a degree apprenticeship. And Barrett said some really nice stuff about us, which I won't read out, but it went well, it's going well, we're still working with Barrett. And what I said about the course and my involvement with it was that it completely changed my perceptions of what a university is for and who it's for. And I didn't say that lightly when I received some thanks from them before resigning from the role as course leader. So it was all going very well with Barrett. We want to transfer them and Kia and other construction companies into the degree apprenticeship, or actually a higher apprenticeship at level 4 and then the level 6 degree apprenticeship as well. Sheffield Hallam put in the largest application for Trailblazer funding when all this began of any university, and that was predicated on the construction site supervisor apprenticeship. We're still waiting for that one to be signed off. So are Kia, so are Barrett, so are those corporate partnerships. So we manage them, we manage that situation. But it's an example of how the Trailblazer process has caused a major issue for those partners. I'm sure that one day we will be able to deliver the construction site supervisor degree apprenticeship to those partners. When we do, will we encounter scenario 1? Because what we've got going is good. It's funded by a levy, different one. It's all about work-based learning. It's exactly like any other degree apprenticeship that we would design. In fact, it's probably better than some of them that we've designed, if I'm honest. So will we encounter scenario 1 where the 20% off the job learning is a distraction, additional bureaucracy? Just don't need it. Why does this course need it? It works well, it's award-winning. Or scenario 2, we've learned from doing apprenticeships. We can bring that experience to bear on the the Barrett Foundation degree and top-up award, and that we can ensure that the employer progresses its own culture through observing the requirement to provide that 20% off the job learning. It will of course be scenario 2, but how much effort will it take to get to scenario 2? That remains to be seen. I'm going to really quickly run through some cultural challenges because we've been talking about this stuff all day. There's policy uncertainty. There's a question of how schools treat targets. Is a degree apprenticeship going into work, or is it going into a degree with the university, or do you get double marks because it's both? It's the best of both worlds. I don't know. I've asked so many people this question. Of course, the SFA compliance and the completions ethos. An obsession with data on completions, which does not match the higher education ethos around progressive learning and choice. It's at odds. The employer perspective, maybe this is a bit unfair, but it's levy driven, it's about retention, it's about enhancing productivity. We've got the legacy from frameworks and FEs embroiled in moving from frameworks to standards and the challenges that they're facing. We've actually managed to create our own legacy just in 3 years, and by doing an engineering framework, I'm not sure that was the wisest move. We need to understand what school leavers expect and want from us. As a parent of 3 kids, I have no idea. And finally, we need to, in HE, perhaps step away from the culture of, we have some knowledge and we would like to share it with you and empower you by giving you the knowledge, but move towards a different model of teaching where the knowledge is out there on the seats in the classroom, and the tutor is actually little more than a vehicle of discussion to facilitate the emergence of true practice-based knowledge. So there's quite a lot of collision going on within all those cultural factors. At Sheffield Hallam, we are desperate to change the way we do things. We are really working hard to address all of those and focusing on productivity and courses to meet employer needs, not the ones that just sell, but there is a question of feasibility. We have to engage with the ESFA, we have to get on with them, and we have to build the infrastructure, and we are doing that. We volunteered to be audited by them to test their funding compliance toolkit a couple of months back. No other university was brave enough to do that. We're doing a load of employer engagement. We're investing money, time, resources in bringing employers to the table. We're getting out to schools now. We're building resource to do that, helping the learners to engage and changing the perceptions of apprenticeships through the degree brand. And we're hopefully changing the way that we deliver the provision through work-based learning as well, and training our own staff. But ultimately, partnerships can really free up this agenda. I'm a strong believer in collaboration, and I've seen what it can do with apprenticeships. Focusing in, though, on work-based learning support, provider and employer roles capability in doing so, and in particular the 20%. Here's how we bake the pie. Here's how we skin the cat. This is a typical undergraduate degree programme for level 4, level 5 and level 6 study. The red strand down the middle is part of our work-based learning ethos. It's professional and personal development work-based learning, portfolio building fundamentally. So there's 20 credits at every level of study. The green stuff, project-focused modules, that's another 20 credits of selected study where the learner is given the choice to choose their project. It's not particularly new, but this is how we structure a typical degree apprenticeship. So in level 4 and level 5, a third of the course is not subject specific, it's learner specific. It's important that in terms of how we're dealing with the 20%, which I will come back to. That red strand is there to facilitate portfolio building, the recording of 20%, and to evaluate progress towards knowledge, skills and behaviours. All our degree apprenticeships, or higher apprenticeships as well, are based on a mapping exercise to check that the right knowledge, skills and behaviours are embedded, but also to look at the support journey. So that's an example of the mapping exercise, which shows our modules of study across the top compared to the knowledge, skills and behaviours for the standard down the left-hand side, and then we start to look at the relationship. Of course, anything that's going to fit into 20% off the job learning has to show progression towards some element of the knowledge, skills and behaviours, and so we know that all our modules are helping with that, to contribute towards that, and there's a good alignment between the award and what's happening in the workplace. This is how we try and communicate this to our new apprentices, and the employers for that matter, in fact to the staff as well. Now, apprenticeship is a 3-way agreement with a commitment statement at the beginning. The journey is comprised of the academic award, if there is one, or the training programme, if not, the job, and it moves them towards the endpoint assessment. A university will offer credits, 120 per level, 360 for a degree, and a training programme and milestones for the employer. Those go to the endpoint assessment, and the job carries on past it. That's at least in theory. There's a gap, of course, usually between the end of the award and the endpoint assessment, and that's the gateway programme. I'm moving fast intentionally because we've talked about this all day. Critically, to move towards the KSBs, the knowledge, skills, behaviours, those work-based learning modules I was pointing at a moment ago in red and green have to feed across, as does the supportive role of the mentor in the workplace, so that that apprentice journey is supported and they can build their portfolio successfully. And into there goes the 20% learning, which actually is calculated with reference to getting to right this point. So attendance at university, even if it is day release, is not enough in itself to achieve the total 20% off the job learning required. It needs to be more than just turning up one day a week, because the actual lecture programme and study time in the library, etc., they might not actually get you there. They're probably going to get you 3/4 of the way there, so we still need to worry about the rest of it. We developed a free online development toolkit for the workplace mentors. It's in its pilot year, and we intend to evolve it, and we intend to align it with the level 3 standard in coaching and mentoring, so that the mentors who mentor the apprentices can be apprentices themselves, and so on and so on. A virtuous circle, we hope. And of course, we've got our own academic work-based learning support modules, and we've developed an internal teaching essentials toolkit to upskill our own staff in what is work-based learning, what is excellent practice. We'll be exploring that in June at our national conference. Quick example of how we've used collaboration to develop and tried to tag the 20% in here as well. We have a hub and spoke model for the health and social care apprenticeship, with colleges in the city region and beyond it, but primarily within Sheffield City region and the Yorkshire area. So we've developed an apprenticeship which meets the level 5 standard in health and social care for band 4 practitioners, as it were. And we basically franchise that award out to the colleges. We don't deliver it. The numbers, the apprenticeship numbers, do not belong to Sheffield Hallam. We simply provide the curriculum. And that enables progression on a very consistent basis, so it does do us some financial good in the long term, because some of these learners come through and join us for nursing awards, which going forward will also be degree apprenticeships. But it's really addressing the social mobility agenda. It's really reaching out across a wider area to offer the apprenticeship model and progression opportunities to a much wider audience in an area of acute skills shortages. The 20% off the job learning, we're developing our principles around this, and what we're not saying to the colleges is stop doing it your way, you must do it this way. But we are using a community of practice to evolve some principles. We're still piloting these, okay? And I've tried to paraphrase what are can get a bit complicated when you try to express them. So we're trying to really simplify the model to help employers and the apprentices to evidence their work-based learning, to evidence the 20% off the job learning. So I'm just going to run through these briefly. I'm happy to take questions on them afterwards, of course. If you attend the university, whether you're in a classroom or you've gone to the library or you're sitting in a communal workspace sharing information with your peers or going to ask the tutor for some extra supervision, it's 100%. Record all of that time in your logbook, no questions asked, easy. I talked to you about the project aspects of our degree apprenticeships. 20 credits at every level is focused on a work-based project. We are saying to our learners, when you are back at work, and this accords with what Simon was saying a few moments ago, when you are back at work doing that project, because it has been selected as the subject matter of one of your modules at the university, we think we welcome you to assume that 50% of that time can be counted as off-the-job / on-the-job training. And we're pretty comfortable with that statement. If they want to record less because they were just getting the job done, that's fine. But we're happy to support that when it comes to their evidence base. Of course, there's planned and dedicated training which takes them towards knowledge, skills and behaviours, which might not be delivered through the degree programme. That, of course, can be recorded at 100% of the time committed. And then there's a couple of other things we've tried to help with where they've planned in some extra experience. Part of the work, but it's going deeper or broader in scope than just getting the job done. The experience is more challenging, more stretching, so it helps them move towards KSBs. So we say, well, actually, you need to make a judgment. 25 to 75% of that time can be off-the-job training, but you need to show that it was more than just getting the job done and that you made progress towards KSBs. Similarly, it might not have been planned, but it was more responsive to an opportunity to get that extra experience whilst the opportunity arose. And we think that's fair game too. So we're providing some guiding principles to our apprentices to make those decisions, but it's ambiguous. I came across an old African saying which was presented to me in the Outer Hebrides, and I'm not going to try and explain how that worked, but this is where it comes from. The leader of this African community, who were in the Highlands, said that those who know that they know are leaders. Those who know that they don't know are followers. We've all been in that position. Those that don't know that they don't know are dangerous. Trump. Those who don't know that they do know need to be woken up. And that one was one of the most interesting ones for me. And going back to how you record your 20% off-the-job learning, it's just about building the confidence to make sound judgments. I don't think there's any magic to it. Some of it's obvious, some of it's about good ethics and sound professional judgments and behaviours about what constitutes off-the-job learning and progression towards knowledge, skills and behaviours. That's my final slide, so I guess that was about 15 minutes, give or take. Off-the-job learning is symptomatic of barriers to entry because it's just another complexity that needs infrastructure and a bit of expertise. The compliance culture does distract from innovation to help independent and autonomous learners. Higher education talks about autonomy of learning. All this box-ticking stuff has got nothing to do with autonomous, independent thinking at all. I'm not saying it's not necessary, but it contradicts years and years of thinking in higher education, so we're struggling with that. Those ideal outcomes, though, they are genuinely possible. They are happening. Many universities are achieving real impact with their employer partners in this initial phase, and it will get better too. So the ideals are there to take. We can do it, but it's a lot of hard work. Getting through those barriers is all about collaboration, and that's where we've got to focus our efforts to look at that pathway from level 2 right through to level 7 in partnership, and that can be done. But I'm not saying it's easy. So thank you for staying, thank you for listening. That's me done.